Chairman Watson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask the director to come forward and do a budget presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've come before you today for two actions. One would be to ask for expansions to this current year budget, that being 16-17 fiscal year, and also for approval of our projected 17-18 year budget. Just a couple of short notes of the budget process and how we get to where we are. Our staff review that we have every year involves about 3 weeks of all day of going through 450 projects individually on a 3-year comparison of the 3 previous years, looking at what we'd be doing this year with each of our division chiefs and each of the regional managers and appropriate staff. After we get through with that, and whatever action you take here today, it will go through 3 more reviews, 3 different fiscal committees of the legislature. So I want to just note that we appreciate the time, Mr. Chairman, you've put in individually meeting with us and Chairman Cannon as well, and a number of packets that we've sent out to the Budget Committee on things that you would be looking at individually in preparation for today. So that was good. So whatever action you take today, we'll answer as many questions as we can. The good news, really fast forwarding, is that this year will only impact our reserve by about $1 million, which is much less than we projected when we went into this. And it looks like for the next 3 years, we will still be good in terms of the fiscal standing and where the reserve will be, as the commission took action to say we should keep a minimum reserve of a certain amount. And by all accounts, without some catastrophe, we will be there. We also don't see any reduction in the immediate future for federal aid. Most of those programs are solid, and there's actually some action going through Congress that might actually give us more federal aid on certain species that we don't have now. I want to respond to any questions that you may have, but in essence, what we'd be asking for is an expansion to this year's budget, which you have already approved. So the only action you need to take on the expansion would be for the expansion itself, and that would be for the 16-17 year, an expansion of $3,884,300, of which $2,242,000 is tied up in the Cumberland County shooting facility that we talked about earlier. On the 17-18 year, we'd be asking for a total budget approval of $86,289,300.
Thank you, Director. We'd like to tell the audience here and everything else and the staff and all that, as the Director referred to it, we have met several times in publicly noticed meetings in Nashville. We met this morning for 2 hours in another noticed meeting discussing this, so we don't take it lightly. This Budget Committee's worked very hard on the budget and on the expansions, looking over it, asking for explanations of expenses, and so therefore I am asking now, do I hear a motion for the expansions?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the expansions.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion from the committee? Any from the audience? Okay. We're going to vote on the expansions first, and then we'll go to the budget. Okay, all for the expansions, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against, say nay. Okay, passes. Okay, again, I'll stress we're looking at the 2017-18 budget. We're voting on a budget of $86,289,300.
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget for $86,289,300.
Second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I've got an amendment to
Yes.
propose. I would propose an amendment. When the Wildlife Committee met in July, the Wildlife Committee, the Budget Committee recommended to suspend funding or defund the agency TV show, item 1610, and I put that in the form of a motion to delete item 1610 of $253,600 from this budget. That will complete the third year of the 5-year contract and not renew it for the 4th and 5th year.
Any discussion? Okay. So, where I understand this amendment, the motion has been the motion to. Excuse me, thank you. Thanks for turning it on, turned it off. Okay, thank you. Okay, the motion for $86,289,300 has been amended to take out the expense of the TV show. That's correct.
And we vote on the amendment first and then the
Okay.
regular budget.
Okay. So we're gonna vote on the amendment first. All for it, say aye. Anyone against it, say nay. Okay, so it passes. So now we're gonna go back and vote on the budget amended. All for that budget, say aye. Anyone against it, say nay. Okay, Mr. Chairman, the budget is passed out of the committee.
Chairman Watson, thank you so much. Director Carter, thank you, and
Just-
thank you for your work this morning.
Once again, just thanks to the Budget Committee. There was a lot of work that went into this, and I appreciate it greatly.
For the public that wasn't here this morning, that had to be one of the most complete, one of the most thorough Budget Committee meetings going through this budget that I've ever been a part of. Good questions, just very, very well done. So my thanks to the efforts of the Budget Committee. Chair recognizes Trey Teague, Chairman of the Wildlife Management Committee. Chairman Teague, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to introduce Mark Goodland, Chief of Wildlife and Forestry Division.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This afternoon, wildlife staff will present 5 proclamations for the committee consideration. First of those will be is Proclamation 16-39, which will proclaim the Buffalo Ridge Refuge. This is located in Humphreys County, just south of I-40 and west of the Buffalo River. There are 2 tracks that are accessible from Highway 13 on the east. There's a barn on the grounds that will serve as the Tom and Wendy Beasley Wildlife Outreach and Special Events Center. And at this time, the anticipated events on there will be special hunts such as the Wounded Warrior, Becoming an Outdoor Woman, and various youth hunts. If there are no questions with that, I'll go on with the next one. Next proclamation is Proclamation 16-40, which will proclaim the Middle Fork of the Fork of Deer River Refuge. This is 984 acres that are located in northwest Madison County, just southeast of Humboldt. And these grounds will serve as a wetland demonstration area. The tract will actually be owned by the agency, but will be managed by the West Tennessee River Basin Authority and the Nature Conservancy with grant funds that they have secured. Hearing no questions on that, if it pleases Mr. Chairman. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Brady. I do not believe there will be hunts on there, correct? No.
A point of order, and forgive me, but we will need a motion and a second on this proclamation before there'll be discussion.
A motion for, I guess we'll start with Proclamation 16-39.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the Wildlife Committee? Discussion from the audience? No discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Proclamation 16-39 passes.
Mr. Chairman, I move passage of Proclamation 16-40.
Have a motion for Proclamation 16-40. Second. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the commission? Excuse me, from the committee?
Would you talk just a little bit about why it's a refuge? Is this a dug area next to it?
Not any areas, agency areas that are adjacent that I'm aware of. If I would, Chief of Real Estate, Tim Churchill, is a little more familiar with this project.
This is going to be set up as something of a wetland demonstration project. I'm not certain how long the agency will actually hold this. We're looking to transfer it at some point in the future, either to TDEC or to Madison County or the city of Jackson. I'm not sure, but we're also looking at possibly adding some hunting areas onto the western part of that. As you can look at the map, there's other properties that we're interested in to buy that would be huntable, but it's a refuge at this point.
So we own all of it.
We own most of it. The green on the map we own.
It's not hunted now.
It's not hunted now, no.
And actually, just one thing I want to point out that I noticed now on the map, it's the name is the Middle Forked Deer River Refuge. So not to give any impression that it's a deer refuge.
Any more quick discussion from the committee? Any from the audience? If there's none, I have a motion and a second. All in favor of passage of Proclamation 16-40, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Proclamation 16-40 passes committee.
At this point, if it's okay with Mr. Chairman, if I call to the podium Assistant Director Wilson, who will address the next proclamation.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Commissioners. I asked Alan Peterson if I could give this presentation like it's listed in notebooks, and he reluctantly agreed.
I forgot to pull that up for you.
What's up?
There you go. Sorry about that.
Thank you. So back in January of this year, there was a almost historic flood that took place on the Mississippi River that forced a lot of the deer to be up on the, particularly the Great River Road area in Obion and Lake counties, and allowed for easy access for some hunters to go shoot them. It gave the appearance of being unethical hunting, and our commission chose to had emergency closure of deer hunting in that particular area because of the flood. So we were asked to come back with a recommendation that would either be better or the same to look at it pretty closely, and this is our recommendation. First of all, just a little bit of history about some of the historic floods that have taken place in that area. And if you notice, the highest on record was not too long ago, back in 2011, took place in May. And of the top 10, almost all of them took place in the spring of the year or the summer. And the only two were the one in February of 46 feet and one this past January. So in looking at, our staff discussed what would be a good simple way for the hunters to know when a good time would be if it ever took place again. Again, this is very unusual for flooding to take place that time of the year, it's typically in the spring, but it did take place and it could happen again. So our recommendation is when the Mississippi River stage reaches 34 feet at Carruthersville gauge, all big game hunting will close in Mississippi River floodwater zone, and I'm going to describe that in a second, and will remain closed until the Mississippi River stage falls to 32 feet at the Memphis gauge. Well, that's what was in your notebooks. We want to, the Region 1 folks met with some experts with the National Weather Service and found that the way we've got it worded here, it probably wouldn't work very well, just because when the water's 34 feet at Crothesville, it may be 29 feet at Memphis, and it's just kind of confusing. So they recommended to change that to say both readings should take place at the Crothesville gauge at 32 feet and 34 feet. So the zone, this was also in your original packet, was going to be for the entire section of the Tennessee western border with the Mississippi River, to go from Mississippi River mile marker 905 in Kentucky all the way to the southern border of Mississippi at mile marker 715. After discussing, well, excuse me, so this is what we originally proposed, that was in your original notebooks. Region 1 and the staff agree that, and if the commission would like to consider, since most of the flooding that took place impacted the deer in the Obion and the Lake County area, they were proposing, or request the commission consider just changing that from the, going all the way down through the Mississippi River border to just down to the Dyer County line down at mile marker 819, river mile marker 819. So we adjusted the map a little bit. This shows, basically it goes from the river east to the bluff and describes the county, the river miles on the Mississippi River and the Obion River all the way up Kentucky too. Also, just to note that the commission, there's already a proclamation in place that says that turkeys may not be shot or stalked from a boat in Dyer, Haywood, Lauderdale, Obion, and Shelby or Tipton counties. And of course, this will be when, in most cases, when the water's out during springtime. Any comments?
So I probably need a motion if.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we pass Proclamation 1645.
Have a motion? I have a motion and a second. Pass Proclamation 16-45 concerning Mississippi River floodwater zone hunting closure. Discussion from the committee.
Bobby, on the, it'd be the east border, I know we've got it, the Mississippi River Bluff. Would Highway 78 be a reasonable, as far as agency's concerned, is that suitable?
Yeah,
That's what we did in the fall.
It
when we-
was.
in
It
the-
was.
Not in
it's
the fall, but the winter.
Back in January, yeah. We could use the same delineation of Highway 78 from the Obion River Bridge, I believe, north to the Kentucky line on Highway 78. Everything that's everything that's east of Highway 78 all the way to the river would be closed if it reaches that 34-foot gauge on the Crothersville gauge. West of, okay, excuse me, east of the Mississippi River and west of the Highway 78. Thank you. We can come, if that's the wishes of the commission, we can come back with that specific language tomorrow.
The way it read last year was all areas west of Highway 78 from the Kentucky state line to the Ohio River Bridge, and west of the Obion River from the Highway 78 bridge to the Mississippi River shall be closed to deer hunting.
We can come back tomorrow with that language, show you if that's the desire and wishes of the committee and the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go ahead and, I'd like to amend that to include that language that we used. It would be the eastern border would be Highway 78, and the southern border would be Ohio, the Obion River.
I second that motion.
Just for a point of clarification, Bledsoe, you have the language. Do you mind reading, or does Kurt need to read what that exact language would be? You still got it?
It says all areas west of Highway 78 from the Kentucky state line to the Obion River Bridge, and west of the Obion River from Highway 78 bridge to the Mississippi River shall be closed
big game. Yep.
And Mr. Sir,
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to, I mean, would, Commissioner Bledsoe's reading from his last year's proclamation, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that he was using the action that we took last year. And if this is discussion, I think I'm certainly prepared to vote. It makes sense to be clear about that. And we can all, I do think we need to stay as flexible as possible to make sure that we don't, if for some reason there's a new area that is impacted like this one was, that we are positioned to act quickly. But I think this makes a great deal of sense in terms of the area.
Yeah, I feel like this is more conservative than what the initial recommendation was, but it's definitely a clearly defined line. But obviously, we would have the ability, if we had some kind of situation that we're not anticipating, that we could at any time close. Any more discussion concerning the amendment from the committee?
Just for clarity, Commissioner Holbert, what was the flood stage and then when it went back into where you could hunt again? Did you have those feet?
34. 34 at Caruthersville and open back when it's 32. Opens when it's 32. Concerning the amendment to Proclamation 16-45, is there any more discussion from the committee? Discussion from the audience? I'd like to take a vote on the amendment to Proclamation 16-45. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The amendment passes.
Thank you.
Wait, I've still got the proclamation. Any discussion from Wildlife Committee on Proclamation 16-45 as amended? Discussion from the audience. There's no more discussion. All in favor of Proclamation 16-45 as amended?
Aye.
All opposed? Proclamation 16-45 as amended passes Wildlife Committee. Thanks. Mark Goodland. Yours.
All right. Get there yet? Okay, we'll move on to Proclamation 16-47, which defines the hunting seasons, bag limits, and hunt dates on national wildlife refuges and other federal lands in Tennessee. This proclamation would repeal and replace existing Proclamation 16-34. The federal land managers, in this case, would be the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, decide what the hunting seasons and dates and various hunts that they want on those lands, and they use our state proclamation system to implement those regulations. And we're honoring a request by them to adjust, make some corrections in various season dates. Specifically, this involves 2 national refuges, the Tennessee National Wildlife Refuge, fall deer quota hunt, change the quota from 125 to 75. Fall deer muzzleloader hunt, the month changed from October to November. The fall deer turkey hunt, archery only, to an archery shotgun hunt, and adjust fall raccoon season dates and define hunting hours. And then there was one change on the Cross Creeks National Wildlife Refuge, and that was 1 fall deer hunt, changing from a gun hunt to a muzzleloader hunt. Now, none of those as refuges, they have their individual printed publications with those dates and those dates that they are changing to are already printed. We don't have those identified it all in our hunting guide, so there are no issues there. And again, this is just a request from those Fish and Wildlife Refuge managers to change the dates to what they had desired for their hunts.
Do we usually have this in the hunting guide?
No,
We don't ever get this in time when we set seasons?
we do set, again, it's in the current Proclamation 16-34, but there was some hiccups in the communication originally when we set that proclamation, so these are correcting it to what was desired by the Fish and Wildlife managers.
But you
on
said
those
none of that
lands.
information is going to be
None
in
of
our
that
hunting
information
guide
is in the
anyway,
hunting
so,
guide,
okay,
correct.
I got it.
They each have their individual brochures with their hunting dates.
I'll make a motion to pass Proclamation 16-47 hunting season and bag limits on select national wildlife refuges.
Second.
Have a motion and a second for Proclamation 16-47. Any discussion from the committee? No discussion. Any discussion from the audience? To call a vote for Proclamation 16-47 from the Wildlife Management Committee. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Proclamation 16-47 passes committee. Thank you.
Moving on to the last proclamation, then, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, call up Manager 4, Region 4 Manager John Gregory to present that proclamation.
Thank you, Chief Goodland and Chairman Teague. I'd like to present, it's actually a repeal of Proclamation 1637 to a new verbiage, 1648. I have some pictures, aerial photographs of the area we're talking about. You can see a zone, I think it should come up in blue. This is the zone that's outside the government property that would be closed. It's about a half-mile stretch of the river. And they told me it was about 450 feet wide. So I don't know if, I'm not sure in this one or the next. This, you can see the subdivision that runs the riverbank there. And with those houses there in the current law, it's actually closing a very small portion of the river. It was originally set up as a wildlife refuge in 1999. The officers have been enforcing the no hunting, but they have been allowed boating and fishing in this zone. And the language that I asked you to pass in May actually closed it and was more restrictive than the way we had been enforcing it, which was our intent to begin with. So we want to go with the new language that would close. So this is the lower boundary, which is the end of the government land at the Holston Army Ammunition Plant. And I bet you I don't have another slide, and I've already passed the upper boundary. Yes, sir. It's the railroad bridge that was kind of the top part of that blue zone. And boating and fishing would still be allowed, but the proclamation would close the hunting on that stretch of river. And it's from the 4th Saturday in August to the end of February. And the agency requests passage of this new and repeal the old proclamation.
Mr. Chairman, has that, did I understand you to say that it's already been closed to hunting previously?
In 1999, it was set up as a wildlife refuge, and at least in the law enforcement interpretation meant that it shouldn't have had really any kind of activity, taking a fish or any type of game in that zone. Kind of the question came up this past year that fishing really wasn't the purpose to stop, and we were trying to correct the proclamation language to meet what historically has been allowed to be used there. And so the officers wouldn't have that kind of limbo of enforcing something that, or allowing something that really on paper felt like it really was closed. And also inside the refuge, they hold fishing events in the summer inside the refuge that's controlled by the military and the managers of that Holston Army Ammunition Plant. And with it being a refuge, we felt they were in violation and we were trying to fix. So their events, you know, there wouldn't be any problem with them holding events on their property.
Can you flip back to that previous slide?
Oh, let's see. I'm not sure, I can't remember how to back things up.
So,
Backspace?
so I'm trying to visualize.
On back?
No, that's good. But, so you're going to allow fishing now to the
To
fence
the-
of hosting the fence, right?
Right.
Okay.
The general public is not allowed to be inside the Army Ammunition Plant property except when they are doing one of those special events that they administer and take care of.
Are we gonna be able to fish down to this blue line now, or still have to stop fishing at the bridge?
No, fishing would be allowed from the inner plant railroad bridge down to where the river turns green, which is the federal line.
Really?
Yes, sir.
I've been turned around at the bridge before.
Well, by who?
By that guy carrying an M16.
Well,
Your reputation precedes you.
I just want to make sure it wasn't one of my guys. So.
Chairman Teague, I'd like to make a motion to approve Proclamation 16-48.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for Proclamation 16-48 concerning the Holston Army Ammunition Plant. Any more discussion from the committee? Any discussion, comments from the audience? Okay, all in favor of passage of Proclamation 16-48, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Proclamation 16-48 passes committee.
Thank you, Chairman Teague.
Thank you.